given the epic new power introduced in this season, but
Kal-El can fly. Clark Kent is still Earthbound.
Stupid no flights, no tights rule. Still, that scene was absolutely epic. Season 4 is a great season of Smallville. It's not without its negatives, but the positives completely outweigh those negatives, and I'm excited to talk about it with you. What did you think of Smallville Season 4? Let's talk in the comments. Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin, and this is my theological review for Smallville Season 4, Crusade. This is an epic season of Smallville, and one of the things that I really like about the season is a treasure hunting season. There are 3 Kryptonian relics out there, and it's about the quest to bring those relics together. And as Clark, the Luthers, Lana, and the Teagues all go questing for these relics, it's interesting what gets unveiled about these characters. First, I want to say thank you to a brand new patron that I have, Aaron White. Thank you so much, Aaron, for jumping on board as a patron of Durbania. It means so much to me for you to step up and do that and support this channel, so thank you so much. And if you like this type of video that I do, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and share this with a friend.
Man can't deny his true nature.
It's time to fulfill my destiny.
I am the villain of the story.
As a whole, I really like Season 4 of Smallville. It is the final season of the high school years, so in a lot of ways we get to see our characters mature and grow up, especially as they're stepping out of high school, making more adult decisions. So it's very cool to watch our favorite characters grow throughout the season. Now, very cool to end the high school years with the event that began the show, another meteor shower where another ship comes down in it. Some of the cool stuff in Season 4, Chloe finds out! Now, Alicia is one of the most interesting characters because she was sort of just this freak of the week real quick in Season 3. Then they bring her in for 2 additional episodes in Season 4. And they do such a great job with her. Her character is not wasted at all. In fact, she's interesting and complex. She has an interesting character arc. And you really see inside, she's battling kind of that psychotic, obsessive nature and wants to overcome it. And she's genuinely in love with Clark. And the whole arc that has her episodes, they really build up to Clark feeling so lonely this season and desperately just wanting somebody to share his secret with.
Mom, there's a part of me that never feels freer than when I'm with Alicia.
So when Alicia first comes in, you feel the suspicion, Clark feels the suspicion, but because they did such a great build up to this moment, you really see why Clark lets her in, because you do see the good side of Alicia. You see what Clark sees. Like, Clark is trained to see the good in people, and they do a good job of showing us the good in her. And then she gets back into that obsessive nature, and then Alicia doses Clark, which is a wee bit of red kryptonite, and they run off to Vegas and get married. Now, this scene is actually kind of funny, and they set it up to be kind of funny. But one of the things that I really like is right before they're about to consummate their marriage, she decides she wants all of the real Clark, so she takes off the red kryptonite. He comes to his senses, puts a halt to everything, and says, no, we can't do this. Now, they were underage, therefore the marriage wasn't legal, but what I love is that isn't the point. I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that a lot of modern shows would probably just gloss over this as a funny little moment and go onward, but Smallville used this as a fantastic opportunity to drop a little conviction.
Marriage is sacred, Clark. It's about 2 people who trust each other and are willing to go through life together no matter how difficult it gets. I thought we had taught you that.
Good old Martha Kent dropping the conviction that marriage is a covenant and it should be entered into responsibly and taken seriously. But then, of course, she gets better and then relapses again and gets a hold of Chloe. It's really sad because she wants to reveal to Chloe Clark's secret so that Chloe will publish it in the Torch and out Clark to everybody. And in so doing, you know, Clark will be free to not hide and all of that stuff. And so she takes Chloe, hides her, and Clark catches this car. And I mean, the look on Chloe's face is fantastic. But you know what I love the most about it? Is what they do with Chloe past this point. Now, to finish up Alicia really quick, I mean, when she dies in that second episode, it's powerful. Again, it's because, I mean, I think Brian and I said it best in our live season 2 talk, where they just really built up to that, and it was a shock when it happened. So they just did a great job with that plot line and writing that in there. I felt the emotion. It felt earned when Clark was holding her in his arms and crying over her. But now getting back to Chloe, it's just so great what they did with her, because once she discovered his secret, she didn't unveil it to everybody. She didn't write this huge story about it. In fact, she didn't even go up to Clark and say, I know your secret, why didn't you tell me? No, instead, she decided to wait until Clark was ready to tell her. And what's hilarious is all the hints that she continuously drops.
What are you gonna do, break in and rip open the safe? You know, that was a pretty quick errand, Clark. I mean, Metro Motors is all the way on the other side of the city. I just have a feeling that you're destined to do a lot more in this world than just score touchdowns.
And what's so funny about that is you just see, it's like, come on, Clark, just tell me. Like, you get that sense in her, but you also get that patience in her. She knows the secret, but she's gonna wait until Clark is ready. And I love that aspect about her character. In fact, what's so great is the episode Blank, where that guy, you know, has that crypto power, and he can just take away minutes of your memory, but it's a kryptonite power, so it affects Clark differently, and it takes away all of his memory. I mean, it's a whole episode even without the Kent parents, so it's dedicated to showing us Chloe's faithfulness to Clark. And so here she is introducing to him the powers that she knows, discovering the powers she didn't know he had.
Hold on a minute, are you telling me that you can see through solid objects? Premature combustion, that's one I didn't need to know about.
And then when he gets his whole memory back and loses the day that Chloe was protecting him, Chloe had a golden opportunity to say, Clark, you revealed your secret to me. Like, she had a golden opportunity during this time to talk about it with him. You know what she did? She again went back to being patient and waited for Clark to be ready to divulge his secret to her. And so I thought that was so amazing. And I already loved Chloe leading up to this episode. Like, she's already one of my absolutely favorite characters. But this episode just made me love her character all the more. So they did a great job with that, with Chloe finding out his secret. New DC characters, we get to meet Impulse, Bart Allen, not Barry Allen, the Flash, but Bart Allen, Impulse. Now, I'm going to be honest, I didn't know much about the Flash until the CW did the Flash show, and that was a good show. The first 2 seasons I really enjoyed particularly. And what I know about The Flash, I learned from that show. So there's still a lot of blanks that need to be filled in for me. But when I first watched season 4, as it was airing, and he had all those fake IDs of Wally West and Barry Allen and Jay Garrick, you know, those names didn't mean much to me. Now that I've watched The Flash and we've seen the multiverse and met Jay Garrick and we have Wally West and all that, those names meant so much more to me in the rewatch, and it was so fun. Now, even though I still don't know a ton about Bart Allen, I really liked his character in this episode. And one of the things that I really liked about it is the influence that they had on each other. I mean, Bart was awesome with his powers. I mean, that moment where Clark sees him running on water and he's actually faster than Clark and Clark couldn't catch him, that was a tremendous moment. But Bart is using his powers for evil. He does a few good things, like he saves Jonathan Kent. But in the process of saving Jonathan Kent, what does he do? He steals Jonathan's wallet. And so, you know, he's not all like a great character, but Clark sees the good in him.
I've seen the good in you. Bart, you've got to stop running, or in the end, you'll just be alone.
And so it changes Bart. And so Bart, when he leaves Smallville, decides he's going to go find others like them.
See if there's anyone else out there like us. Maybe start like a club or a league or something.
And that really is just a great moment. So you see Clark being the good-natured character that he is. It changes Bart. But at the same time, Bart also has an effect on Clark. You know, Clark carries his powers like a burden, and I feel like Bart helped him loosen up a little bit and taught him to have fun as they ran to Miami together. And so a lot of fun moments like that where you can see that they influenced each other both for the positive. So there was a lot of great things in this episode and introducing Bart Allen to us for the very first time.
Who are you?
Lois. Lois Lane.
My favorite thing they did in this season was introduce us to Lois Lane. Erica Durance is fantastic as Lois Lane, just fantastic. She brings tremendous life to this character. She's fierce, she's independent, she's strong, and she's fun, and she's likable. She's such a great character from the inside out, and it's why Erica Durance is my favorite live action portrayal of Lois Lane. I love how she played this character. I can't compliment the way she portrayed this character enough, and she only gets better as the show goes on. But from the moment we meet Lois Lane onward, it's fantastic. Like, season 3 ends with Clark going with Jor-El into the cave, and he gets teleported to some weird place, and he's reborn as Kal-El, and he gets beamed into this cornfield in lightning, and he's there naked. It's just hilarious how Lois Lane first meets him.
Look at his face.
And from there, it just gets better when she takes him to the hospital, and she's standing in the door like,
well, you're gonna have to get through me first.
do you see that little smile on her face? So there's all these little moments like that that are just fantastic, just in that initial meeting when Clark Kent and Lois Lane meet for the first time. Tom Welling and Erica Durance had tremendous chemistry on screen together. They are busting each other's chops, but you can tell they like each other. And when I say that, I don't mean it as romantic, because when they first meet, there's not really romance there, and there's a little bit of an edge in their relationship, but they do like each other.
I don't know how you ever survived without me.
In fact, I think all of those moments add up so that by the time you get to the third episode, you have this moment. Now, as this is going on, I feel bad for Chloe, because what you can really see is the love that is blossoming there. But when I say that, again, it's still not at that romantic point. It really is friendship on such a genuine level. And so when they build to that moment, it works. Again, it's a moment that is completely earned in this show, because by the time you get to this third episode, you can't help but love Lois Lane, and you can't help but love them on screen together.
I just want you to know, Clark, that when I'm sitting in the audience today at your graduation and you stand up on that stage, and I'm gonna be looking up at you and thinking one thing. Please, God, don't let him trip.
I love it the first time Clark saves Lois Lane, because the first time he goes to save her, I mean, look at that thing. You have this thing lowering down on her. It's got the needles, all this kryptonite in it, and Clark, he really does save her. Like, he stops all the needles from puncturing her and all of that stuff, and all the stuff that would have happened if that would have happened. He saves her, but he's around kryptonite, so he gets sick, and then she saves him. But I think one of my favorite moments is when Clark is at Met U, and the football team is offering him a full scholarship and all of that stuff, and Lois gets kidnapped by Jeff Johns. I love that. I love that this football player's name is Jeff Johns. Anyway, kidnaps Lois. She's about to die, but just even listen to the music in this. And I think the reason the music rises up like that and is so dramatic is because this scene very much so resembles the classic Superman rushing to save Lois Lane moments. It just feels like such a classic moment, and it's so great once we get there. So I really do love the friendship between Clark and Lois that begins this season.
Lois? She's bossy. She's stuck up. She's rude. I can't stand her.
But man, I gotta tell you, one of the biggest negatives for me in season 4 is Lana Lang.
This one.
Seasons 1 through 3, I think she's a tolerable character in this last rewatch. I think the reason I get so upset with her character, especially as the show goes on, is because in season 4 we met Lois. And all the things that are so positive between Clark and Lois and their friendship highlights everything that is so wrong and negative between Lana and Clark's relationship. Their relationship is completely full of distrust and angst. Every time they're together, you see the weight of the world on Clark's shoulders. You see the weight of the world on Lana's shoulders, and you see Lana put the weight of the world on Clark's shoulders. In fact, I think the friendship between Clark and Chloe in the season, when Chloe knows his secret, is healthier than the entirety of the relationship between Clark and Lana. Because the way Lana continuously gets portrayed, I just feel like if Lana was in Chloe's shoes and Alicia had put Lana behind that barricade and she saw Clark catch that car, I feel like Lana would have run out from that hiding place, would have demanded that Clark come clean right here, right now, and she would have just let him have it. All of that built up anger. Now, I love Jensen Ackles as Jason this season. I think he's a cool character and it's a lot of fun to bring him on board, but I feel bad for him getting caught up in all of this drama. I mean, this scene here is Jason's worst fear in the episode where they hallucinate their worst fears. If this is his worst fear, then obviously Lana talks an awful lot about Clark with her boyfriend. The reason I left is because of all the dishonesty between me and Clark, and it's like, oh my gosh. I feel so bad for Jason, but that whole thing is just creepy. Because, you know, let's be honest, Kristen Crook's probably almost 30 while they're filming this, and she's playing a high schooler, and Jensen Ackles probably almost 30 while they're filming this, so they're really the same age. And even in the show, I know they're only supposed to be a few years apart. When they meet in Paris, it's like almost okay, but it's creepy the moment they come to Smallville and he's working for her school as the assistant coach and a teacher. So now you actually have a coach dating a student, but he got the job because, one, it was a job he could do, but also to be close to Lana. It's like, oh, this is so incredibly creepy. It is, like, I'm for Lex getting him fired. Like, to me, that was a great plot line, and it needed to happen because it's honestly so incredibly weird. The other plotline I really did not like was Lana as the witch, when Countess Isabelle Thoreau possesses her. Like, I didn't like the whole plotline, mostly because I think what this season should have been is the journey of the Luthers on this crusade to unite the three elements and Clark's crusade to unite the three elements. I mean, just really dividing up between those two would be interesting enough. But I felt like the reason Isabel is in this season is to give Lana something to do. And they wanted Lana to be the third person on this quest. And that just really bugged me because it didn't feel organic or natural. It felt like it was shoehorned in there, like it was shoved in there because Lana just has to have something to do. I mean, I didn't even like how she was pronouncing the spells when she was doing the spells. It was just kind of irritating to me. And as much as, yeah, it's cool, the revelation that magic affects Clark, because that is comic book canon, that even magic can affect Superman. So yes, we get that introduced to us here, but I didn't like the way it was introduced. I did not like this whole plot line as Lana as the witch, because in my mind, there's just no reason for Lana to be going after the stones at all. And in fact, Isabel makes a point that she wants the stones. Now, we also know Mrs. Teague is a descendant of the woman, I think her name is Gertrude, who betrayed Isabel back in the day. She got Isabel started looking for the stones and then betrayed her. And so Isabel wants to wipe out her entire family line. So of course, Isabel's gonna wanna kill Mrs. Teague and Jason Teague. Of course, that's just what she wants to do. But she also made it clear she wants to unite the stones, that she wants to rule the world. And then at the end, she kills Mrs. Teague and then she just goes away, like she's at rest. So really, there was no point in her questing for these stones.
I warned you that the elements could not fall into the hands of a human. The three must become one.
Now, when we get to the quest of the three stones, there's definitely some very interesting things here. And it reminds me of Jesus' parable of the sower. Because as Jesus told this parable of the sower, he talked about a farmer who scattered some seed. Some of that seed hit rocky places. It took no root, started to grow, but when that sun beat down, because there was no root, it just withered and died. Some seeds fell among the weeds and the thorns, and so as the plant tried to grow, it was choked out by the weeds and the thorns. And some seed fell on good soil, where it grew a crop 100-fold more, and it's like this excellent thing. And it's interesting because I feel like I can see that reflected throughout this crusade that occurs in season 4. For instance, Lionel, he's definitely the rocky heart. And what's interesting about it is you really see that Lionel has potential to change. One of my favorite episodes is Lionel has the second stone. Lex finds the first one in Egypt. They're flying back. Clark flies through the sky, rips the plane door off, and he grabs that stone. It's such an epic scene. And Lex is turned on to this search because Lionel has been spending considerable resources, because remember, he has that fatal liver disease. He's dying. He's looking to otherworldly resources to save his life. He's trying to understand the mysteries of the cave. And here we find that he's been sending teams all over the world to hunt down these 3 stones, which is exactly why Lex is looking for it now. And he was only ever able to recover one in Honduras, and it was the transference stone, the stone with the symbol for transference on it. And what's so cool about that episode is when Lionel's about to use it on Lex, when Lionel's in prison, it calls out to Clark. Clark rushes to the prison, gets between Lex and Lionel. And Lionel, what he wanted to do, he wanted to switch bodies with his son. He wanted to doom Lex to the liver disease, take Lex's body, and continue to live his life that way. Instead, he settled for Clark Kent, which this whole thing is great. It is hilarious. The first time Lionel Luthor in Clark Kent's body lifts up that truck.
It all makes sense now.
But what you see in this episode is once this transference occurs, and they transfer back, so when he was in Clark's body, he couldn't retain those memories. He couldn't remember his time as Clark Kent. When he switches back, his liver is healed. His body is completely healed. And all he's left with is the idea that something good was inside and changed him. Not just healing him, but fundamentally changed him. You see Lionel Luthor redeemed.
What is the value of my sinful life unless I use it as an example to shepherd fellow sinners?
Yeah, that's a little bit cheesy, but the point is, he's a new man. But here's why he's that rocky ground. Because this good seed was planted, but it had no root. And so the moment any kind of testing came on it, it withered and died because it had no root.
What's inside you, Dad? Is it really just puppies and hugs now, or is there something else twisting in your gut, squirming to be free again?
And it shows us the importance of those choices that we learned in season 1. And so because of those choices he made, he had no real good soil in his heart. And so it took no root and it died. For Lex, we really see that. I feel bad for Lex because Lionel just really taught his son nothing but distrust. Lionel forever has held it against Lex the death of Julian. And so Lex just has this weak foundation that in a sense he's come by honestly, but when Clark saves him, it's like that good seed gets planted in his heart. And it does seem to take root, and it does begin to grow. Like, we see it so often, and I love it in this show how often we have something that looks like this. It's the blue and the red. It's the dark side and the light side battling inside Lex Luthor. But for Lex, I think it's the deceitfulness of riches. It's his lust for power that is those thorns and those thistles that choke out that goodness that is trying to grow inside. And this is the season where we really see that. One of the reasons I love the episode Onyx so much is that we really see the dark side of Lex separated from the light side of Lex. We get the potential of how good he can be.
If I could find a way to make this work, Luthor Corp could put an end to hunger and famine forever.
And we see the potential of just how bad he can be.
What do you want?
The world, Mrs. Kent. And your son's gonna help me bring it to its knees.
And so we get a good picture of what's wrestling and fighting deep down inside of him this entire time.
I'm your soul, you weak, pathetic little man! I'm the real Lex Luthor!
But sadly, what we see in this season is him constantly allowing that good to be choked out of him, especially in that episode Blank, when Clark has no memory. And what does Lex do? He bold-faced lies to Clark. They go down into the caves, and he's like, Clark.
And ever since, the two of us have been working together, trying to solve its mysteries. That's just between you and me.
What I'm so happy is that check rose up in Clark's spirit, and he knew not to talk any further with Lex, kind of like his gut check there. But what you really do see is by the time you get to the end of this season, he is so desperate for those stones. He is so desperate for the knowledge that they offer, for the power that could come to him, for the answers to his question, that you really see that lust for power, the lust to get a hold of those stones. It really starts to almost permanently now in this season choke out that goodness in him. And so it's very interesting, Lex's journey as he goes on this crusade for the stones. And here's the obvious picture. Clark Kent represents the good soil. And it's an obvious picture simply because the most casual of superhero fans knows Clark Kent is Superman. They know Clark Kent is going to become Superman, and he will produce that 100-fold crop. But what I like about Smallville is we do see a very human picture of somebody on that journey, and some tests come their way that they pass, and some tests come their way that they fail. They stumble and they fall, but they have that believing heart that has allowed that good word to come inside and take root. And because it really has taken root, it will grow. And the promise of that growth will come about. And so we get an amazing picture that throughout Clark's journey here on Smallville, and especially here in season 4. One major test that comes Clark's way that he passes with flying colors is the football test.
Dad, I'm sorry I disappointed you, but I'm staying on the team.
Now, what's cool about the football test is he just decides he's going to play football his senior year. Period. Even though his dad is kind of against it, and his dad's against it for good reasons. It's not fair whenever Clark is out there on that field. But he decides, this is my senior year. This is the only chance I'm ever going to have. I'm going to play football, which led to one of my absolute favorite scenes with Mr. Mitzel-Pitalik, however you say his name, when Clark goes to throw that toss and the time freezes, he runs all the way under the stands, he saves Chloe, knocks out Mitzel-Pitalik, runs all the way back on the field and gets back in position. It was just flippin' amazing. But anyway, the point is he wins like this amazing scholarship to MET-U because of course he's an awesome player. And he says he didn't really use his powers out there on the field. But this was a very grown-up choice that he decided to make this year. He was going to play football. But then, as the recruiter from MET-U comes, Jeff Johns, which I think, again, is absolutely hysterical, as soon as he gets out there, he hears this.
I never even used my powers in high school, but when I came to college, I had to win so bad. I couldn't stop.
And seeing Jeff Johns in his desperateness, doing whatever he had to do to cover up his power. Jeff Johns who said, I didn't use my power in high school, but this is a pressure cooker, man. I mean, we have to win. And as the pressure mounted, I was forced to use my power because we gotta win. When Clark saw that, he made the most mature decision ever.
I'm gonna have to lie on every physical, rig every test. I'm gonna have to do anything I can to protect my secret.
This was him passing the football test. He had a full ride to MET-U. He could have met his lifelong dream of being a bulldog, but he gave it up because he realized this is not the right move. Whenever Clark is on that field, it's not fair to anyone.
I'm proud of you, Clark. I just have a feeling that you're destined to do a lot more in this world than just score touchdowns.
So that's the test that he passed, but throughout this season, the test that he fails is the test of the 3 stones. In fact, in going on his quest to get these stones of power, they were left on Earth for him. The knowledge is Kryptonian knowledge. So the idea was that he would put those stones together. So in season 2, when Jor-El first shows up and wants him to begin his quest, this is the quest Jor-El wanted him to begin, was to bring these 3 stones together. Now, can you imagine if Kal-El in season 2, instead of defying Jor-El and putting the kryptonite key in the ship and blowing it up, if he hadn't done that, what would have happened? I mean, maybe that very summer between his sophomore year and junior year, instead of running wild in Metropolis, he would have gathered the 3 stones. Lex Luthor never would have gotten involved with that. The Teagues never would have gotten any of them. He would have put all 3 together. The fortress would have already been built by season 3, and he would be learning so much about Krypton, and who knows where things could have been. But as Aslan says in the Chronicles of Narnia, nobody is told what could have been or would have been. We're only told what will be now, because we have the present day where we can make those choices. And so Clark has that epic scene where he flies, gets on Luthor's jet, and gets the first stone. When it comes to the second stone, which is the transference stone, and it's left on the floor in the prison, you know he could have got it. I mean, come on, all it was kicked away in the crowd of that prison riot. He could have run circles where nobody could have seen him running so fast, used his supervision and x-ray vision, pinpointed the stone and grabbed it right then and there and brought it back. But he didn't. I mean, he probably had excuses as to why he didn't do it, but again, they're just excuses. We know how fast he can move. We know his powers. He should have grabbed that stone right then and right there. And we could say, oh, it was lost. X-ray vision, my friend. It was not lost to Clark Kent. And then when it came to the third stone, the episode where he's in China, it's a good episode. And when that stone hit the ground and Jason Teague took it, I'm sorry. Again, you have Clark Kent. He's got super hearing, he's got supervision, he's got x-ray vision. It would not have been hard for him to see that Jason Teague took that stone. It would not have been hard for him to move super fast and get it out of Jason Teague's pocket before he even knew it wasn't there anymore. He had all of these opportunities, but he purposefully held back, or maybe just subconsciously, because he's making these choices out of fear. And then you have Lana possessed by the witch, stabbing Mrs. Teague, blood stains one of the elements, it awakens the ship containing the disciples of Zod and Brainiac.
The disciples of Zod.
Season 5. The point is, that was a whole danger in space that wouldn't have had to have been awakened. But it was awakened because Clark was dilly-dallying. He knew what he should have been doing, and he did not do it. You know, when you go through the Bible, you find the same thing with all of our great biblical heroes, with Abraham, with David, where God gives this promise, and then they find these ways to muck it up a little bit. But even though they do that, here's the awesome truth. They were humble before God. See, God's word and promise had taken root in Abraham's heart. It had taken root in David's heart. Therefore, having taken root, it was able to grow and produce that crop. And producing that crop, it produces that conviction that continues to drive them back to God. A God who will keep his word, the word that he sends out, it will come to pass. Abraham messed up, but the promised child still came to him even when it was impossible. David messed up, yet he was still known as a man after God's own heart in the end. That's how great God is. And I love this picture of Lionel Luthor, Lex Luthor, and Clark Kent, because it goes back to season 1, the importance of our choices. See, God wants us to have a heart of faith and that believing heart. That's the heart, that's the good soil. And God is that farmer sending out his word. And he sends out his word to prosper us and not harm us, to bring us a hope and a future. And his promise is that when we have that relationship with him and let his word take root in our heart, it's going to grow. It's going to produce good things. And God is faithful to keep his promises. But sometimes we could choose not to have those hearts of faith. We could choose to have those rocky hearts where that word has no ability to take root. And when testing comes, it dies because there was no root, no depth. Then we have those weeds that could grow. Like with Lex Luthor, that lust for power, or the worries and cares of the world. We could allow that to just grow and allow that stuff to choke out that promise. Or we have that heart of faith that takes God at his word and lets that take root in our heart to produce good. But we even see this honest picture in Clark. He's not perfect, and life wasn't a bed of roses for him, and he made all kinds of mistakes. But when we really believe and let God's word take root in our heart, it will produce, and there is nothing that can stop the good that God wants to produce in us. And he loves us unconditionally, and he's not surprised by one single mistake you or I could ever make. And there's not one mistake, not one thing we could do to make God love us any less. He loves you and me perfectly and unconditionally. So as we let that word take root, it will drive us to him, where we will find that mercy and strength in our time of need, and he will bring about the good that he promised in our lives. So what did you think of Smallville Season 4? This is the picture that I see in Season 4. What do you see? Let's talk about that in the comments. And while you're there, hit that subscribe button to become a Durbanian. Hit that bell by the subscribe button so you're notified for my next movie review, ranking video, theological analysis, or anything else I do here. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.